Lee Harvey Oswald, the man accused as President John F. Kennedy's assassin. November 22, 1963, Dallas, Texas. President Kennedy was shot. 2 days later, Oswald was killed on live television by Jack Ruby. He left behind a young family, a wife, 2 little girls, June Lee Oswald, 20 months old, Audrey Marina Rachel Oswald, just a 33-day-old baby. In one day, their lives changed, from ordinary babies to the fatherless daughters of America's most hated man. What happened to these 2 women today? How did they cope with the infamy? How did they build their lives? Here is the secret story of Lee Harvey Oswald's daughters. Born into infamy, 1961, Lee Harvey Oswald marries Marina Prusakova, a young Russian woman. February 15, 1962. Their first daughter, June Lee Oswald, is born October 20, 1963. Their second daughter, Audrey Marina Rachel Oswald, is born, later known as Rachel. Baby Rachel is only 33 days old. Her father is accused of killing the president. Then he's shot and killed on live television. Within 2 days, the Oswald children transform from ordinary babies into the daughters of America's most hated man. Their mother, Marina Oswald, suddenly a widow at 22. In the center of a media firestorm, little June in her arms, newborn Rachel. Reporters pursuing them, her husband's infamy haunting their lives. November 1963, an iconic photograph at Oswald's funeral. Marina sitting graveside, June in her lap, a relative holding baby Rachel. The world's eyes are on this small family. Marina has to figure out how to raise her daughters under an intense public spotlight. The struggle for normalcy. Marina is determined to give her daughters a normal life. She's looking for a fresh start. June 1965, Marina remarries Kenneth Porter. She becomes Marina Oswald Porter. Kenneth is an electronics worker. He provides stability for the family. In 1966, a stepbrother named Mark is born. The 2 Oswald girls now use a new last name. They're not formally adopted, but they use Porter in daily life, a chance at an ordinary childhood. Marina and the children move to Richardson, then to Rockwall, Texas. Small communities, hoping to blend in. But escaping the shadow of the Oswald name is easier said than done. Marina works hard to protect her daughters from unwanted attention. She makes sure her daughters are neatly dressed whenever they leave the house, no matter how small the errand. June later recalls, "Mom never knew when we'd run into someone. She didn't want us looking like poor white trash. Even going to the grocery store turns into a spectacle. Shoppers hush and stare. They recognize Marina, the delicate Russian beauty widowed by the man who shot the president. To protect her daughters, Marina tries to hide the most obvious marker of their identity, their last name. When June enters public school, she starts using her stepfather's surname. She becomes June Porter, not Oswald. Rachel will do the same. This anonymity was meant to give them a fresh start, free from the direct association with their father. It helped, but only to a point. The Oswald legacy had a way of catching up with them. From a young age, June and Rachel notice strange occurrences, things other families don't have to deal with. Unknown vandals shoot at the family's mailbox. News crews sometimes follow their school bus, hoping for a glimpse of Oswald's kids. Moving to the small town of Rockwall brought its own peculiar fame. Everyone in town knew my mother, Rachel later recalls. Most people were kind, but they were always whispering about the family. Even Marina's private life draws public interest. During her quiet wedding to Kenneth Porter, helicopters buzz overhead, turning the happy moment into a media circus. Despite these challenges, Marina and Kenneth provide a loving home. They try to raise the girls like any other kids. At home, Lee Harvey Oswald becomes the elephant in the room, the one nobody talks about. Marina rarely speaks of her late husband as the girls grow up. For years, June and Rachel live an outwardly normal life, birthday parties, school, friends, without truly understanding the historical weight their family carries. By all accounts, the sisters' childhood childhood was pretty normal most of the time. They had friends. They went to school events. They were mostly treated like regular kids, but there were moments, especially as they got older, when reality intruded in cruel ways. Stepping out of the shadows for decades, Marina succeeded in keeping her daughters out of the spotlight. Late 1980s and early 90s, the pull of history begins to catch up with the Oswald daughters. The approaching 30th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination in 1993 brings a resurgence of public interest. Conspiracy theories and new books are making headlines. Even their mother, Marina, starts to voice doubts about the official story. After years of silence, June and Rachel each decide, on their own terms, to step forward and share a piece of their lives with the world. June, the older daughter, is the first to speak out. 1993. At 30 years old, she grants a rare interview on NBC's Today Show, talking about what it was like growing up as Lee Harvey Oswald's child. Understandably nervous, but composed, June reveals how thoroughly her mother had shielded them. For 25 years, it was a subject we didn't talk much about around the house. Mom would try to keep us sheltered. The assassination and her father's infamy had been almost a forbidden topic at home for most of her life. Now, in front of a national audience, June is finally addressing the question everyone had always wondered. Does she believe her father actually killed President Kennedy? June doesn't claim her father's innocence outright, but she makes it clear that she feels the full truth is not yet known. There's a lot of information that we'd like to get for me and my family, she insists. Decades after the Warren Commission, June still carries unanswered questions about her father's role in the JFK tragedy. She tells the interviewer that she would accept it if definitive proof showed Oswald was the lone assassin. I'll accept whatever the truth is, but she implies that such proof hasn't emerged to her satisfaction. Like many Americans, June suspects there's more to the story. She wants access to all the classified files and evidence that had been locked away. In fact, she becomes somewhat active in the early 90s efforts to declassify JFK assassination records. She even writes a letter to Congress and the president to push for transparency. After that single high-profile interview, June largely retreats from public view. She had opened the door a crack to share her perspective. Once she'd said her piece, she was content to go back to a private life. But her appearance had one other effect. It paved the way for her younger sister to have her say too. Rachel's story, 1995. Rachel, now in her early 30s, and often going by her middle name Rachel, gives an interview to Texas Monthly. She's speaking publicly about her father and her family's unusual journey for the first time. Rachel's approach is much like her sister's, thoughtful, cautious, and searching for the truth. She was only a month old at the time of the assassination. Unlike June, she has no personal memories of Lee at all. In fact, Rachel was so removed from the Oswald name that she truly believed Kenneth Porter was her real dad for the first several years of her life. Learning at age 7 that she was Lee Oswald's daughter had been a shock. But as she tells the magazine, it was also somewhat liberating to finally understand her own story. Rachel shares vivid anecdotes of their childhood, confirming much of what June had described. She recalls the media frenzy and how reporters and paparazzi hounded them through the years. To her, these intrusive experiences were just normal in a twisted way. It was all she had ever known. She mentions one particularly hurtful tabloid headline: "Oswald kids don't have dogs or dates," painting the sisters as friendless misfits. Rachel hates seeing lies printed about her family. For the record, both sisters did have pets, and certainly dated in high school like other kids. That tabloid headline was nothing but cruel sensationalism. During the interview, Rachel is working as a waitress at a chili parlor while putting herself through nursing school. She's determined to build an ordinary, productive life far away from the infamy of her birth name. Yet, like her mother and sister, Rachel can't escape the lingering question of her father's guilt. She admits that she watched Oliver Stone's film JFK, 1991, in which her father is portrayed. Surprisingly, she feels the movie's depiction of Lee Harvey Oswald was accurate in capturing his enigmatic persona. Rachel, too, voiced is her belief that the assassination may not have been a lone wolf act. She doesn't think her father could have worked alone in killing Kennedy. This isn't a wild claim or attention-seeking on her part. It's an earnest expression of the same uncertainty and need for answers that June had conveyed. Both sisters, having lived their entire lives in the shadow of this history, simply want to know the truth about what happened in 1963. Life out of the spotlight. After their brief foray into the public eye in the 90s, June and Rachel returned to relative anonymity. Having spoken out to share their side and to plead for truth, they choose to live their adult lives as privately as possible. Each sister focuses on building her own family and career, determined not to be defined by their father's infamous legacy. June, who had taken the last name Porter in everyday life, married and had children of her own in the 1980s. By the mid-90s, she's a mother of 2 young boys and working in office administration. She's fiercely protective of her privacy, especially of her sons. In one case, a co-worker discovers an article revealing June's identity and spreads it around the office. June gathers her team to confirm the truth, but firmly asks them to keep it to themselves. She worries that if tabloids get wind of her home address or the existence of her kids, the same circus that plagued her own childhood would descend on them. Having lived through that ordeal once, she's determined to shield her children from the assassination cultists and conspiracy buffs who had hounded the Oswald family for years. For the most part, June succeeds in living under the radar. She still uses an assumed surname in her professional life. She remains virtually invisible to the public eye. Now in her early 60s, June Oswald Porter has never written a book or sought the spotlight further. She appears to prefer the quiet suburban life of a regular American mom, forever haunted but not defined by who her father was. Rachel, a few years younger, also builds a quiet life in Texas. She graduates nursing school. She goes on to work as a registered nurse, a career far removed from the notoriety of her birth family. Rachel also marries and reportedly has a family of her own, though she keeps those details extremely private. In the Texas Monthly piece, Rachel comes across as grounded and resilient, someone who managed to emerge from an unusual upbringing with a healthy sense of self. She expresses a mixture of protectiveness and frustration regarding her father's legacy. Protectiveness. She deeply resents untrue stories written about her family. Frustration. The full truth of the JFK assassination remains elusive. Like her sister, Rachel slips back into obscurity after voicing her thoughts in the 90s. Today, in her early 60s, Rachel Oswald Porter, as she's known when people do realize who she is, still lives in the United States, presumably in relative peace. And what about Marina, the girl's mother? Marina Oswald Porter also seeks a quiet American life. She becomes a U.S. citizen in the 1980s. She settles in Texas permanently. Over the years, Marina gradually changes her view about her husband's guilt. By the 90s, she publicly states she believes Lee Oswald was framed and didn't shoot Kennedy. But she, too, largely retreats from public view. She protects her second family with Kenneth Porter. The last time journalists caught sight of Marina was around the 50th anniversary of the assassination in 2013. A tabloid photographed her grocery shopping in a Dallas suburb. By then, she was in her 70s, a grandmother many times over. Both June and Rachel have children of their own. Neighbors who knew Marina in later years described her as a kind, quiet person, far from the traumatized young widow the world saw on TV in 1963.